closing in.
Progress toward our objectives has been rapid and in some cases dramatic.
U.S.-led forces rolled toward Baghdad in spite of stiff Iraqi resistance. Battle cry. Saddam Hussein issues a new call for Iraqis to throw back the invaders, sounding the alarm.
The people in Basra may be facing a humanitarian disaster.
The UN warns of a looming crisis in southern Iraq. And a question of strategy. Does the coalition have enough troops on the ground to win in Iraq? Or should it have built up a larger force before attacking? A special report by Brian Stewart.
The National. From the Canadian Broadcasting Centre, here is Peter Mansbridge.
Good evening. American soldiers seem to be in position tonight on the brink of a critical phase of the war. They're just outside Baghdad, the battle on the ground and in the air reaching a new level of intensity. Quickly, the highlights. Big explosions reported south of Baghdad. The Pentagon saying it has started attacking Saddam Hussein's elite Republican Guard. There's also word that U.S. advance units have now reached Karbala and Al Qut, very close to Baghdad. But one thing that might slow them down: monster sandstorms in the area. Also, near Karbala, American helicopters ran into a hornet's nest of fire. One Apache helicopter went down, its pilots now prisoners. South of there, soldiers are still dealing with some serious pockets of resistance. In Najaf, American soldiers encountered Iraqi rockets and anti-aircraft fire. Fierce fighting is apparently continuing around Nasiriyah, where 9 U.S. Marines were killed yesterday and other soldiers taken captive. It's been rough going around Basra as well, where British troops reportedly came under heavy fire. And another story from Basra: concern there is no longer a safe supply of drinking water to Iraq's second largest city. We'll have more on the situation in Basra in a moment, as well as a report from northern Iraq. But first, the push towards Baghdad. And with that, our senior Washington correspondent, David Halton. David.
Well, Peter, the Pentagon now says it's on schedule to launch potentially the biggest battle of the war, the ground assault on Baghdad.
All day, the columns of armor moved north. The vanguard of coalition tanks and troops now just 80 kilometers from Baghdad. Swarming ahead of them were more than 30 Apache attack helicopters. They were part of an intense aerial assault on the Medina division of the Republican Guard, an elite Iraqi force targeted as the last line of defense between the southern outskirts of Baghdad and the advancing coalition forces.
I do know that it is one of the best of the Republican Guard divisions, one of the most powerful of the Republican Guard divisions. I am sure that it has been degraded significantly in the last 48 hours or so.
Degraded, perhaps, but still able to shoot down an Apache helicopter. Baghdad TV showed the chopper surrounded by cheering Iraqis, its parts strewn around the area.
The fate of the crew is uncertain right now. We characterize that crew of 2 men as missing in action. We're not sure.
Not sure until these images were shown by Iraqi TV. The 2 pilots looking confused. 2 more American prisoners of war. As its main force pushed north, other coalition troops detoured to a suspected chemical weapons factory.
Any site that might store weapons while we're attacking through, we're going to check it out.
But backing down from claims made yesterday, the Pentagon said there's no proof yet that chemical weapons were manufactured here. Iraqi POWs are still being questioned about the site, some of them forced to lie face down in the desert sand. In Germany, 12 wounded coalition soldiers arrived for treatment at a U.S. military hospital, even as another 4 Americans were wounded in an ambush by Iraqis near Nasiriyah, far to the rear of the coalition front line.
We got a critical patient, needs to get out of here.
When unleashed, there must have been tons of them because I just heard walls of fire, mortars, everything.
There were casualties too among people just trying to escape this war. 5 Syrians killed when their bus was hit by a stray U.S. missile near the border.
There are indications, though, that the human cost of this war could soon become a lot worse. According to late reports, Iraq's Republican Guard has been authorized now to use chemical weapons if U.S. troops cross a so-called red line around Baghdad. Peter?
All right, David, thank you. David Holton in Washington tonight. Now to northern Iraq, where there are signs that pressure is building on the leadership in Baghdad. U.S. soldiers have been spotted in Erbil, about 100 kilometers from Chamchamal. That's where the CBC's Patrick Brown is tonight. As he reports, the coalition bombings in the capital are having a powerful effect, one that Iraq is trying to turn to its own advantage.
On the receiving end of what's known in military jargon as collateral damage, the rights and wrongs of war are simple. Broken children lie in hospitals, people who were alive are now dead, and people who had homes now have piles of rubble. What does Mr. Bush want, he says? There are no military targets here. He may be dreaming that we'll welcome his troops, but they'll get a hard time from us. The dead, the maimed, and the homeless are turned into instant ammunition for the propaganda war.
They are insisting criminally in bombarding the civilian quarters. Those stooges, those villains, think that by widening their war crimes, they can weaken us. They are not only wrong, they are criminals and stupid.
Iraqis gathered round television sets for a presidential address to the nation. It seemed to be vintage Saddam, with flowery rhetoric and a conviction that the longer the war goes on, the more impending defeat can be portrayed as a moral victory of heroic resistance. Oh, dear brothers in the victorious Basra, he says, I'll tell them, be patient, brothers, the victory is imminent. In northern Iraq, American troops finally came out into the open. They're working with local Kurdish forces, but the scale of their mission remains a mystery.
U.S. and coalition partners support a secure, stable, free Iraq, which includes the preservation of its current borders.
American special forces have been sighted more frequently around northern Iraq in recent days, but there seems to be no significant buildup of troops. Turkey's blocked access by land, and the small airfields here couldn't accommodate a large-scale deployment. This morning, American planes bombed Iraqi positions across the front line from Kurdish-held territory. But there's still no sign that the Americans and their Kurdish allies are yet in a position to push across and open up a northern front. We're defending our positions, he says, but have no plans to move forward. The oil fields and the strategic towns of Kirkuk and Mosul are tantalizingly close, but still in Iraqi hands. Patrick Brown, CBC News, Chamchamal, northern Iraq.
Well, as we saw in Patrick's item, Saddam Hussein turned up on television again today, but Washington is warning viewers not to believe everything they see on Iraqi TV. The CBC's Neil MacDonald is examining some of the issues in the war for us. Tonight, he explains why the Iraqi leader's television appearances are such a problem for Washington.
These jolly Iraqis appear regularly on state television, serenading the Great Protector. The message, if a little clumsy, is fairly clear. Saddam Hussein is in charge and fighting back. Today's version tossed in pictures of an injured American POW. Washington has floated the notion that Saddam is badly injured. But today he appeared again, cursing the U.S. in his plodding speaking style, telling Iraqis that God is ordering them to cut American throats. There he was, Or was he?
What I can say straight away is that those pictures were not live. So I think we have to do a little more analysis of what was actually said to see whether or not that was in fact Saddam Hussein.
One U.S. network reported tonight that the new video does match Saddam's voice, but he has befuddled the U.S. since it tried to kill him on the first day of the war. Immediately after the airstrike, Saddam went on television. Or did he? Was it a double? Intelligence services seem to have decided it wasn't.